everybody, and welcome to Crafts and Crimes. If the intro video has brought you here, thank you very much. If not, let me give you the rundown. I make gifts and different crafts, and you can watch me make them here, and you can purchase them at From the Heart Gifts linked below. But while I make crafts and gifts of all different kinds, I also talk about films that were inspired by true events, and I talk about the cases that inspired the film, back and forth. So what are we doing today? We are making candles, and we're talking about the 1943 film Shadow of a Doubt and the awful crimes of Earle Nelson. So let's get started. Now, I'm doing the candles a little bit different this time. Not that you would know that, but the last time I made candles, I used canning jars because I like the idea of repurposing after the fact. So you have the candle in the jar, and then you use all the candle. You got a jar you can use for something else. But I had the idea because I have these adorable mugs. Well, they're not mugs. These are teacups and coffee cups that were my mom's, and as you can see, I already started a couple. My grandma and my great grandma's, and I love them so much, but they are too small for my coffee and tea intake. I would just be at the pot all day long with that, so it's just too much for me. If these are your size, that's awesome. If you love to entertain and use the cute little teacups and cups and all that, that is good on you. But I am not Martha Stewart. I love to craft, but I can't do that. That's not how I do things. I'll make Thanksgiving dinner, but I'm doing it buffet style. You're gonna serve yourself. Anyway, so I figured I would redo the reverse and repurpose these for candles. And I know that there are a lot, these are going to be mine, but there are lots, I decided and found lots of little tiny cups that are too small for real consumption that would make adorable little candles. And I've got I got coffee smells and tea smells to make them look like they're real coffee cups and teacups, but they'll be used for candles. And if you really, really want that size cup afterward, use the candle, and then you have the cup for afterward. So reverse, repurpose. So let's get on with it. Now, as you can see, I started these ones. I'm gluing it. These ones I have the cup and the saucer for. Getting the wax. I'm getting the wick in the cups at the moment, and then we're gonna move on to melting the wax and making it smell good and look pretty. So let's get on to the film, which is Shadow of a Doubt, the 1943 Alfred Hitchcock movie, and it was inspired by the horrible, awful crimes of Earle Nelson. Now, I always want to say his name is Earle Nelson because he has the E on the end, and I know that it's not, so don't come for me. But my brain just wants to make it fancy, or I think my brain just wants to make fun of his name because he was a dick. But I know it's Earle. And the tagline for this film, it's one of my favorites, is: a young girl overjoyed with her favorite uncle comes to visit the family, slowly begins to suspect that he is in fact the merry widow killer sought by the authorities. Now, it stars Teresa Wright, who is our Charlie Newton, and Joseph Cotton, who is our Charlie Oakley. They're named after each other. They have, as she feels, a special bond. And I don't know what kind of bond it is, but it's not special. Well, I guess it is special since she figured it out, but I digress. Alright, so it opens, as we get started with the craft, it opens with him in a boarding house. Now, this film is set in 1942-43, but his real crimes were in 1925. But it's very similar. He's still in a boarding house, which will come back to. It'll be important later. So he's in his boarding house room. He's got money everywhere, and he's got things that he's stolen, or probably have stolen from previous victims. And he's just sitting there, and he's got that ominous look on his face. He plays a good, scary guy. He's also in the 1944 film Gaslight, which technically isn't based on like one crime per se, but it is something that is important to talk about. So I might do that film eventually. I like that film as well too. But he has that scary face. But very manipulative, which is also important too. So the landlord comes in and says that these two gentlemen, they say were your friends, wanted to come see you, but I told them that you weren't in. So they'd have to come back later. That was right? And this woman is taking his money. But he's got her manipulated to believe that like he's got more say in who comes into her house. But whatever. And he tells her, you know what, I don't even know those people. They're not really my friends, but I guess I'll have to meet them anyway. And so she gets all nervous about the money that's laying around because she thinks somebody's going to steal it. Little does she know that she's in danger. But he looks out the window and he's for sure, he's secure in the fact that they don't know anything. That they have to just be trying to scare him, but they don't really have anything on him. But just in case he decides to go visit, he's in Philadelphia. Excuse my sad pronunciation sometimes. And he wants to visit his family just for a visit in Santa Rosa. That's one of the reasons I like this film. Besides that, I really like this film is that it's set in Santa Rosa. I have family there, and I think it's a really pretty area, and you never hear it. And so when you see something like, oh, I know that place, it's like, stupid, I know, but I like it. So he sends a telegram. I love hot glue, right? He sends a telegram to his family that says he's coming for a visit. That's just a visit, blah, blah, blah. Then, as he's leaving, it goes to the family. And the delivery of the telegram by phone, but the one phone. And again, it is the 1940s, so it is just the one phone in the house. But what I love is who answers the phone, and it's not Charlie. Charlie's upstairs being a sad millennial. But the younger daughter, Anne, answers the phone, and she has the confidence we all need, and the non-existent phone anxiety. She answers the phone. She says hello, and the lady says, of course there's a telegram. She's like, I don't have a pen, you should just call back later. Like, girl, I probably wouldn't answer the phone anyway. You can leave a message. But she listens to it anyway. But she's like, I really can't keep these thoughts in my head. I have too many things to think about. And this is, I had to write it down because it's just hilarious. I'm going to have to make something for it. She says, hey, I don't have a pencil. Maybe you should just call back. I'm trying to keep my mind free of things that don't matter. Yes, very much so. And the lady must have said something like, what are you talking about? Because I have so much to keep on my mind. Innumerable things. This child is 9 or 10. But she's got a lot on her plate already. And I like her for it. But she listens to it, and then she goes back to reading her book. She's reading Ivanhoe, by the way. But her dad comes home, and her dad is Henry Travers, who is, what is his name? Oh my God. Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. And I find this really hilarious, and for other reasons, which I will explain later. But he comes home and he's asking where everybody is. And then she tries to explain the telegram. And he's not really listening because, she's 9. And he thinks that somebody was in an accident. That it wasn't, like, nobody's coming to visit. Somebody was in an accident. But he finally asks where. He knows that there is a telegram. He doesn't know what it is. We still don't know. The family still does not know who is coming or what is going on. But the dad, he asks where Charlie is, the daughter. She's named after the crazy uncle. the spoiled uncle, they call him. So he goes up, she's like, she's upstairs thinking. And thinking she is. And she is stuck in a rut. This family is going to pieces. Nothing is meaningful. Our mom is so special. I mean, not that she's not. I'm sure she is. It's just, it's so dramatic. And it's so, like, I mean, what we think today, like, we need things to be special and things have to have a purpose. Which, I mean, I know that we want, but some things sometimes just don't. But, it always that part makes me laugh because she's so dramatic and she needs something to get this family out of the rut because they're just going to pieces. Because everything is just the same every single day. What are they doing with their lives? But then the mom comes home and she wants to do something nice for the mom too, because she is such a wonderful woman, and that is not being sarcastic. She is, but everything is just very dramatic. It just makes me laugh. So she comes home and they're talking about how she's just telling her mom comes home and she's telling her about how everything is just so much in a rut and she has to figure something out. So they leave her, they go downstairs, and she decides that she's going to telegram her Uncle Charlie and tell him to come for a visit, which little does she know, he's already coming for a visit. This is the special connection that they have, is that she thinks is that they already know because she's named after him. He's special, and so that means she's special. He's special for different reasons. But so she goes down to write a telegram to Charlie to come and visit. And the mom was like, "You're not going to ask him for money, are you?" Like, no, money wouldn't do anything. Like, well, I got that right. Money's not going to do everything. But, we just need to come and visit. We'll always do better when he's here. So she runs down. And at the same time, the mom finally gets the telegram that Charlie's coming to visit. And then Charlie, the younger one, is at the telegram office and gets the telegram that Charlie's coming to visit, and she's so excited. She's like, "This is just what we needed. It's a miracle that he's coming to visit." So then he comes to visit. One second, let me get all my stuff in order. But it's more problems than good, as always. Alrighty. So let's get on with the next part of the film. Okay. So he comes, must have been a day or so, because I mean, I believe he's coming by train, so he's coming from Philadelphia to Santa Rosa, so it had to have been a day or two. So he's finally there, and they're having dinner. And this is the part that always makes me laugh. Is the part that I really like, is that the dad, Clarence, and his neighbor friend person are some vintage murderinos. They talk about they read all the old true crime novel-y books, and they discuss the perfect way to murder each other as a way to wind down at night. And it's the comedic relief in the film. I mean, it is a scary movie, but I mean, it's not like it's more, Alfred Hitchcock scary. It's not super scary, but it puts you on edge. Like, what if you had a serial killer in your house? What if it was a member of the family? So you get these conversations between the dad and the friend about what's the best way to murder you. And he says, he's like, where are they just like, I'll hit you on the head and I'll knock you out or whatever, or I'll poison you. And they're going back and forth. And the friend goes, where are your clues? Where's your story? And the dad is, I don't want any clues. I don't want clues. I want to murder you. What do I do with clues? You don't want clues if you want to get away with it, that's for sure. But it's every time they're on screen, it's something about that. And it's that fun little dynamic between like what's really going on in the film and the fact that they're discussing murder. And it is that comedy and the crime together. It's that levity to the situation. Alrighty, so she takes him out and she's just having a grand old time showing her. She's like just out of high school, so I mean she's an old spinster in 1942 apparently, 18 years old. She goes and shows him off around town, and she's so excited to show him off to her friends. And the next day, the news has gotten out that he's this, successful business guy, businessman. He just is in business. One of them has come to visit. And it's a small town, so news travels fast, of course. And I apologize. I missed something. and it is like a clue to something's not right for her, but she wants to ignore it. So that night after dinner, they're reading a newspaper. Well, Charlie's reading the newspaper, the kids are playing. And there's an article about where is the merry widow murderer, which is him. So he gets nervous because he knows that the dad likes true crime. It's not really like called true crime, but I mean it is true crime, but they, the mysteries and stuff. So he wants to get it out of the paper. He doesn't want the dad to read it, doesn't want any of them to know that he might be a suspect. Not that he is named in it, but that they might make some weird connection. So he disguises cutting up the newspaper as have you ever made a house out of newspaper? And all the kids are like, you can't tear up his dad's paper, don't do that. And he does it anyway, of course. And Charlie, the niece, comes in and says he gets mad at them, and he takes the blame for that part. But then he crumples up the article, puts it in his pocket. And later that night she goes, I know you couldn't. I told you, as I said before, I knew that we had a connection, that you couldn't hide anything from me. I knew there was something in that paper about you. And he's like, no, it was about somebody I knew, and it's not good. It's not important. And I didn't want, and he gets really upset because she got the paper, showed that there was a missing article, and he gets real upset and he holds her by her wrists. And at that point, that's a big old red flag. Big old red flag. But she kind of puts it off. Of course, because it's her uncle. You can't, she's named after him. They're special. There's nothing wrong with him. But the next day, as they're waking up, the news, like I said, had traveled, and everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants to get to know him and hear about his business of business, which I think is always hilarious. The mom talks about how, he's just in business. What does that mean, business? There's lots of businesses, like business of serial killing. Yes, he is in business of serial killing, but that's probably not what you mean by business. But so they want him to talk to like the women's club, and I don't know why. I find that a weird aspect that they don't want to talk to the women's club, and you want to, like, is he really that famous? I don't really think he's that well known, but it's just the fact that he's getting more attention than he wants there. And the other thing is that they all of a sudden got picked to be interviewed by the All American Family newspaper article. And it really is not that. It's really the two detectives who are not very good at hiding themselves, that they're gonna come and interview the family, but also they want to get pictures of him to try and get to the witnesses to see if he is the married widow murderer person. But he gets woken up in the morning. She brings him breakfast in bed, and I know you're not supposed to identify with a murderer, but he says, I can't face the morning. I must have coffee before I speak. And if you had to identify with something that a murderer said, I guess that was the least terrifying thing to identify with, because I mean, he's not a real murderer. This is the film. I don't think Earle Nelson spoke that way. But I just thought that was a really funny line because it is too relatable. And he is very manipulative, which is why he gets away with what he gets away with, is because he knows how to speak to people, which is the scary part. That's a lot of scary monsters are scary because they don't seem scary, which is scarier. It makes it much more scary than somebody who's just running around with an axe, I would think. Because you don't, the red flags are harder to identify in that situation because they are so manipulative. Shoot. Stupid thing. Alright. And they talk about, this part is interesting too, because I didn't know until I started researching it. This part is true-ish to what actually happened to Earle. Is he doesn't like his picture being taken, but he has one picture that he has of himself when he was a kid. And they talk about, they talk about his head injury, which, if you know anything about true crime, is head injuries are all the rage in creating serial killers. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I've got plenty. So he got a bike for Christmas. And he got his picture taken, and then he rode his bike out and ran into a streetcar, which I'll get into later when I talk about him per se. But this part is part of his true story, is that he did get in a accident with a streetcar on his bicycle, and he did almost die. And a lovely head injury that I'm sure I'm sure there were other factors, as we will get into, because as much as this film shows, like, they call him the spoiled son, and he's got all this stuff that's like good. Like, Earle Nelson's growing up in life was not as merry as Charlie's is. He had a lot more issues. But the head injury is the same. And he almost died. He was in a coma for like 6 days. So after that, he wasn't really the same. He didn't like she says the mom says he didn't really like to read, and he didn't like his picture being taken. So he doesn't want to be in part of the interview, and he tells Charlie as such to make sure that he is not home or is not around when they come. So they go out, and she's all excited to show him, like I said, excited to show him off. And they come home, and the detectives are there to do the interview, and the mom is so adorable. She's like, the house isn't ready yet. You can't take a picture of that chair. It needs a new slipcover. She's just so, I love her. She's so funny. She's very, all the women in this movie are really like outspoken, and just like they have to have it their way. Like they want to take a picture of her making a cake, and she's like, well, I can't separate it. And they want her to separate an egg for them. This is still wet. You can't do that. First, you can't let it stand. You have to wait. You'll have to come back. So they decide to go take pictures of it, and I just think that's hilarious that she has it, like, it has to be, so you can't just change the way you do things just for a picture. There's the right and the wrong way to do things. Makes me laugh. Which is why, I mean, I think it's just why both of the daughters in the film are so strong too, is that, like, even though she's a housewife, there's nothing wrong with that, like, she's still a very strong character. Dang it, I keep ruining these things. That's okay, I can always use them again. But, so they're taking the pictures and they're doing the interview, and the uncle disappears out the back, and she's talking to the detectives. Well, no, they are detectives, but the interviewers. And she's kind of sad about being average. And there's weird, like, chemistry between, and it goes real fast. This part, like, their connection goes real fast, because it's not a love story. So they don't really have time like they do in films today to create a big old love story between the characters. So this part goes fast, but there is like a connection between the main detective and Charlie, the niece. She's like, I don't want to be an average girl. She's like, well, I think it's great to be average, you know, and you seem like a great girl. And there's all this like cutesy flirtation going by. It's not like they do these days as far as like having to have that love interest in films, but it's a little bit there. So then after the interview, after they take pictures of her room, is where Charlie the uncle is staying, they try to be sneaky and take a picture of him as he's coming in, and they take a picture, and of course he gets upset and he's like, I'm gonna have to have that. And it's old film, it's not digital, so like you open it up and it's gonna ruin it. So he gives him the film, or says, this is important, or says he gives him the film. And they go downstairs and she says, oh, I'm ready with the eggs. Like I said, she had to do the eggs just so to take pictures. And then Charlie, the niece, is like, well, he accidentally took a picture of Charlie, so we can't take a picture. And so I said, well, you'll just have the other detectives, you'll just have to I'll come back tomorrow and make another cake. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna make a cake tomorrow. You can't do, what did she say? I don't know the exact quote. I'm sorry, forgive me. But I cannot go around all day making cakes to that degree of some sort. She's just like, I've got better things to do. I'm making a cake now. You get your pictures or you don't. It's pretty funny. She's very sweet about it, but it's funny. So they leave, but as they leave, she says, well, can I take Charlie out, the niece, and hear more about the family and the town? She's like, well, Anne knows everything, and Anne does know everything. Anne is very smart. But she's like, no, I want to take Charlie out. And of course she wants to take Charlie. I'm like, okay. And she does that. And the mom, excuse me, I get really excited when I talk about films, so sometimes I jump around. But the mom was like, well, if Charlie doesn't mind, and she just says things, I don't mind, and whatever. And I find it adorable and it's hilarious. But here's where it gets real fast, is that the next scene is their date. And I really want to know this conversation. If somebody could write it, we could film it, I don't know. But all of a sudden, she decides that there was something in that conversation, and she figures it out real quick, that he's a detective and that there's something wrong, and that has something to do with Uncle Charlie. And I was like, girl, you're smart. You're smart, and you got there real quick, and there was no in between. And like I said, it goes real fast. So because we gotta keep this story moving. So he tells her that there is a serial killer out there, and they're following two different suspects, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and they're following Charlie on the West Coast because they don't know if it is for sure him, because they don't have any pictures of. They need to get a picture of the suspect to show to the witnesses. But I mean, they could have just, what I think of course this movie's not perfect. It's like they've been around him, they've been following him, they couldn't have gotten pictures before. I don't know. But they need to get pictures of him to send back to see if it is him or not. But alright, I'm gonna start. Let me organize these. Pause there. I'm gonna start melting some wax, getting some color and spices in. So I'm gonna organize these by cup. But where's my other one? So after their date, she gets real upset and she's like, I don't want to see you again. Of course, there's that little bit of tension But she starts to think that like there's something wrong because he got so upset that night and about the paper, and she wants to know what it is. So she starts to look through the newspapers, and of course, and to the rescue, she says, well, you know, you could go to the library. She has all of the newspapers. The librarian has all the newspapers, and she won't even notice if you cut out a little recipe. And Charlie, the niece, says, well, when does the library close? Well, if you read more, you would know it closed at 9. This child. But I love it. I love her attitude. It's hilarious. So she runs over to the library to try and get, there we go, the newspaper. Excuse me, I can't do more than like 3 things at once. And she finally finds the article about it, the Merry Widower, and she starts to get like freaked out a little bit. Whew. Okay. I'll pause for a second. Alright, let me get back to this. Alright, so now get the wax together. Alright, so as she's figuring this out, the Uncle Charlie is figuring out that she's figuring it out, because they do have this special bond, of course. So he tries to explain to her that it's not him, that you have to trust me, of course. That they're wrong, everybody's wrong, he's right, of course, blah, 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 red flags, red flags, red flags everywhere. Of course. So she doesn't really know what to think. And we have another dinner with all the family everywhere. And Anne, of course, doesn't want to sit by Uncle Charlie anymore. Mom, for once, is a little bit like, why? Well, she's like, well, we already have the seats and he was looking forward to it. Like, no, trust the children. If they don't want to be next to him, they don't want to be next to him. But, so she switches with the other kid. It's a boy. He's not really in the story. He's a little bit younger. He's not really in it that much. But, because she doesn't want to sit next to him anymore. So they have another dinner. And again, they have the dad and his friend have another story time. While they're having dinner, he comes over and he sits in that corner and they're like, I figured it out. This is how I'm going to kill you. And Charlie, the niece, gets all upset. And they're like, well, this is your father's way of relaxing. It's like, don't you have any other things to do? And she runs away. And little wax. But yeah. So as the information's coming out, the other guy that they were following got caught. And that's what one of the things was he wanted to come over and tell them about, was that he was gonna get caught. That he got the other excuse my train of thought. The other suspect was being chased by the police, and somehow, well, I guess this is the 1940s, he ran on a freaking tarmac and runs into a plane propeller, which I'm guessing it's not a giant one, which my brain was like a giant JetBlue plane, but it's probably a smaller one, but it got chopped up to pieces. So they think they're reporting it as him getting caught because he died. So they're like, whatever, he died. So they think it's over. Everybody thinks it's over. Well, except for Charlie and the detective and their blossoming romance, sort of. So they come to her and say, do you have any other information? And she's like, no, I have no other information. She really does. She knows, like, but he's scaring her, so she doesn't want to say anything. But there, again, like I said, this weird romance is blossoming real quick. They're out in the shed, the garage shed, and of course he's talking about how he wants to date her, marry her, whatever, and how would that, what would your dad say? And he's like, well, I would love that, because my dad loves true crime, so of course he would love that. But then the wind blows the door shut and it gets locked, and of course nothing happens in a film because it just happens. It's gonna come back later. So what color should we do? I don't know. So they get out, of course, because it's not the scary part of the film yet, but the detectives are gonna leave. So that was him saying goodbye. He's like, maybe I'll come back and see you because I really like you and I want to be with you, kind of thing. All right. So later, like I said before, her woman's group wants him to talk, and again, I don't really know why. They just needed him to have this thing for him to do, because of course, I mean, I know it talks about why, but it doesn't really, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. But bear with me. So they're getting ready for that night, the night of his talk. It's very important. Hi.
What are you doing? Am I interrupted?
No, you're good.
Sorry.
There we go. Sorry for the interruption. Two things happened. One, my camera fell, so that was fun. But before that, my husband is making me more candle cups, and he wanted me to see that. It's out of wood. It's very cool. You want to check them out. They'll be out on, there'll be pictures for that. My husband is a woodworker for Irving Creations, his own thing. So you can check out those there. But I'll show them on my channel, of course. All right. So like I said, he's getting ready for this woman's talk. I don't know about business or, I don't know. Let's see, what flavor should we do? We're going to do pumpkin pie. That smells good. I love pumpkin. Shut up. Don't hate me because I love pumpkin, okay? I've loved pumpkin before the craze. And I actually really like pumpkin pie. Okay, so shush. So, pumpkin pie. Like I said, we're doing this woman's talk, and everybody's really excited about it. And I don't really like it, and I don't, like I said, they don't really, I'll do cinnamon too, go into details about why or what he's really talking about. Although he did have like a night where the mom was like, don't talk like that in front of my women's club, because he was talking about, he's like very negative. He's very talking about something really negative. Like, you can't talk about like that in front of my women's club. They'll have you out. They'll run you out of town. Oh no, they'll tar and feather you. That's it. But it's pretty hilarious. But so they're going to this club, the women's club, just for him to speak. And they're all getting ready, and they're all going to take different taxis, and she really doesn't want, she wants him to leave for sure. And oops. And he said, no, I'm going to stay for now. And I realized, as I'm saying this, I realized why he wanted to go to the women's club. Not because he wanted to speak, but he wanted to find another widower to, another victim, another rich lady to leave, you know. So he goes to, but she wants him to leave, of course. But they're getting ready. They're getting taxis and stuff, and she doesn't want, look how pretty that is. Oh, look, that cup of tea that I'm actually going to use. All right. There we go. Let me move this over here. Excuse my weird accents. They help me focus. So like I said, they're all getting different taxis. And Charlie, the niece, does not want to ride with Charlie, the uncle, of course, but Mom can't figure out why. She's like, just ride with me, just ride with me. And so they're getting the car ready. And, of course, didn't I tell you? I told you that the door getting stuck was gonna come back. So Uncle Charlie went out and turned the car on and left it running in the garage, which I understand what he was doing, but it isn't a sealed garage, so I don't know how long it really would have taken for the poisoning, the gas poisoning to take effect. But he must have been out there for a while, because she goes in there and then the door shuts and she's stuck because they're getting she wanted to bring the car around to put everything in. And so she passes out. I'm like, how long has she been out there? And the neighbor is the one that discovers her, breaks open the door, and we're just going to dump this in here. I'll make it easier. Okay. So, neighbor saves her. Then Uncle Charlie gives her mouth to mouth, whatever, brings her back. And she's so scared. She doesn't want to go to the women's club anymore. She just wants to stay home, and so she doesn't. And they go, blah, blah, blah. They don't really talk about the club. It all happens after. Everybody, it was a big old hit, and everybody loved him. And then, of course, he met his next victim. Well, that's why he says, he doesn't say that. Of course, he doesn't say, oh yeah, I met my next victim. I'm leaving now. No. He says, he tells them, well, I'm leaving on business and I'm going to go upstate. And of course, one of the other ladies like, oh, I'm going upstate too. And so, that's why he's going up there, because he wants her. He wants her money, and he wants to kill her, of course. But no, it's going to happen. I mean, of course, that's not what's going to be. He's not going to say that out loud. Duh. But, okay. Anyway. So they're all getting ready for him to leave, and she's happy about it. Sort of, because she knows that he's not a good person anymore. So he wants him to leave. She wants to protect her mother, because she's sad, because she wanted him there in the first place, and now she doesn't want her mom to be sad. Of course. Duh. She loves her mom. But she just wants him out. She knows it. But it's also scary because she knows that he is a serial killer. So it's like, do I want to turn him in, or do I want him just to leave? Like, that's terrifying. Okay. I like red. Personally, as you can tell, I like the color red. So technically, I should use something that looks like, I probably will for these ones, more of a color that looks like a beverage, which, I mean, I guess it could be like red tea or whatever. But I'm using red because I like red. Whatever. These ones are for me, so it's fine. Do what you want. If you order them, I can do whatever color you want. And whatever smell you want. These just happen to be the ones I'm doing for this project. But whatever. Don't come for me. I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, I put my heart and soul into the things that I do. But I'm also pretty relaxed about things too. So, and don't think I'm Martha Stewart over here. I love to make things for everybody. But I'm definitely not. I'm not wrapping things in gold. I'm not the, sorry, this is my tangent. Like the If anybody else watched the Eliza Schlesinger show when she's got the little potato, she's like, we're just gonna make it so pretty and just like that. Like, no, that's not me. I love doing that stuff, but, and for other people, I am burning up. Sorry. But I'm definitely not that soft-spoken kind of person for this. But I love making crafts, so it's a weird dynamic. And hopefully you enjoy it. But anyway. So he's finally leaving. Thank God. And they're all getting ready for them to go on the train. Well, for him to go on the train. They all want to see him off. Well, the kids want to see him off. The parents want to see him off. And Charlie just wants him to go. So he kind of is like, let's go see your car or your train. Because, of course, he's on, like, a train car. And, like one of those fancy ones. Shoot. Wipe that off. But yeah, so he's on one of those fancy train cars. So the kids want to go see it, and he wants her to go see him on the train. Like that's what he says. Like, come see me off. Bleh, whatever. But it's an ulterior motive because he knows that she knows, and he knows that she's not going to stay quiet forever. So he's got to get rid of her. Now, the other thing is they also, as they're getting on the train, you see, pardon me, you see his next victim waving to him like, hello, hello. And so you know it's not going to stop. So she's like, I know what you did, Uncle Charlie, I can't. And of course he knows too. And he tries to get rid of her in that moment. And more wax. As he gets and they start fighting on the train. And he tries to like throw her off. But the thing is, where are her parents? They like, the train's moving. Of course, the little ones, like Charlie, the niece Charlie says, okay, go to mom and dad. But did they just leave? Because she's still on the train. I know she's 18 and she's a spinster, but God, they just leave her there? Like, we know that she's not going with him. So we just gonna leave without her? But, alright. I get passionate about this. But, just leave her there. So the train's starting to move. The kids are gone, of course. But nobody cares that Charlie's still on the train. But, so they start fighting in between the train cars. And she gets the upper hand and pushes him off the train. And then he gets hit by a train. Bye-bye, Charlie. Bye-bye, Uncle Charlie. Thank God. The next scene, the epilogue of the film, is the funeral for Charlie. And nobody ever finds out that this fool was a serial killer. Well, I think they would personally close it like on their end, but nobody decided to like write a newspaper article about we're just gonna because detective wants to date Charlie, we're not gonna spoil Uncle Charlie's name so that he can date the daughter. That's what I'm guessing, but you know. So like they have this big funeral for him, but she's standing outside of the church because she knows, of course, and the cute detective is there, and she said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you, I was scared. And he's like, I know. And so I was like, but it's all over now. Like, yep, it's all over now. So now they can finally be together, and they can keep this secret from her mom that Uncle Charlie was actually a terrible rapist and serial killer. And that's the end of the movie. He gets murdered. Sorry for the spoilers. But, I mean, like, he doesn't get caught, but he does get, he does get caught. He gets run over by a train. So, I mean, in some ways, it's a little it's a little nicer. I mean, we didn't really have to deal with all the, like, you know, fuck it, justice is done. I mean, I know that's terrible to say. And we wouldn't really, I mean, everybody needs their due process. That's not what I'm saying. But we all know, but in this film, in this particular case, we knew he was the bad guy. So it's okay if you got hit by a train. Just this movie, just this case. But, I mean, so the one suspect, which I'm really curious about, is like, they said that they wrote him off as being the actual one. Was he really a serial killer as well? Did he have his own crimes? Or was he just completely innocent and he just had some like weird tendencies? Or was he just there at the same time? But he got chopped up by an airplane. And the real guy, well, the Charlie of the film, that's the actual Mary widower, got ran over by a train. But the real Earle Nelson was captured and he was put to death. I think he was the electric chair. No, I think he was hanged. Yeah, he was hanged. It was the 20s. We'll get there, people. Bear with me. But, so, bear with me as my cat makes noise. Jenny! But, so, I mean, I don't know who got it worse. I'm sorry, that's terrible. But, like, you get chopped up by a plane, or you get captured, or you get captured and put to death, or you get run over by a train. I don't know. But either way, the Mary widower in this film was killed, and in real life, as his name was, he was the guerrilla killer, or I think it was the Dark Strangler, as they called him. It's not as fancy, but he was also like a scary looking dude. So, I mean, I guess he wasn't. We'll get there. I'm sorry, I'm jumping. My brain's having too much fun. So that's the film, Shadow of a Doubt. Sure, I didn't do it justice. Go watch it. I really like it, and like I said, the reason that I really like it is that I really like it is because I can't talk. Because one, the Santa Rosa thing, because it's like, you know it, so you're like, oh yay. And the other is the Clarence talking about best way to kill somebody, like that fun, whatever you call it, that fun comedic relief within the film makes me really like it. But I mean, of course, it's not a perfect film, but I really like this film. And even my mom is a huge true crime person. She's the one who got me on it. Like, we would watch Court. We would actually watch Court when we were both like played hooky from school. We would watch Court. The like coverage on before Court TV became True TV and all like the dumb criminal stuff was on there. No, they actually like showed real court cases. So we would watch that. So even she didn't know that this was based on a real crime. I mean, I think she'd probably heard of him. She didn't put two and two together that was what the film was based on. And there has been a lot of different things that were, I mean, if you Google it, YouTube it, it'll come up. But it's not as known. So, I like cinnamon. Whatever. But, so let's get into the actual events of Earle Nelson. Earle Nelson, the asshole. Let me scroll through my notes. But like I said, you should watch the film. They make me laugh. The two daughters are really hilarious, I think. They're very like, I mean, it's a movie in the 40s, but it like, they're just strong characters, like pretty strong characters. Some of like, I mean, like I said, the storyline is a little, sometimes, especially with the romance, gets a little rushed, but I just think it's really fun. It's a good movie. Enjoy it. Go watch it. It's on an app
called TV Time. It has a lot of old films on it. You get it on like one of the streaming services, and it's on there for free. But I think you can rent it on like Amazon as well. But there you can watch it for free, and it's a good movie. Like I said, I'm babbling because I was melting up some more wax. Okay, cool. So Earle Nelson is one of the first serial killers of American history. Yes and no. I mean, they call him the first sex criminal, which is gross. But like, many of his crimes were like sex-related based sexual assault crimes as well as murder. Which like before, I mean, his main crimes as murder spree were in the 1926 to 27. So there were ones before. There was the Axeman, which is also unsolved. I think there's a film on that one, so maybe we'll get into that one eventually. And H.H. Holmes, which, I mean, if you don't know who H.H. Holmes is, Google it, whatever. We'll get there too. There's a film for it. But, I mean, he's more well known, so I really wanted to start with ones that aren't as known. So, but everybody wants to be the first for something. So his first is the first sex crimes serial killer. And it was also the reason why it's so well known too, it's so important, is that we'll do brown because we're gonna do some coffee. We're gonna do coffee ones now. We'll make it look pretty, like a little coffee cup. Oh, there's a little bit of red in there, but it'll mix. The other reason is because he was, because his crimes spread throughout the United States and Canada. It was well publicized, and and his body count was real high. It was the highest until Juan Corona's in 1971. So it was really well known at the time. So it was, again, everybody thinks this true crime phase or fad is all brand new, but people are morbid and have been following it for a really long time. So don't be mean. It's not a new thing. We're fascinated with horrible things because I feel like if you know about it, it keeps you on your toes, and you don't, I don't know. It's like, if I know about it all, then I can be on alert, and it won't happen or whatever. I mean, of course, you never know, but if you don't trust anybody, nobody can come near you. Sorry, that's terrible. But yeah. So that was one of the reasons why it was even had media attention in Australia. So it really spanned the area. But okay. So I looked on Wikipedia, of course, and I looked on Murderpedia, and I also was reading The Gorilla Killer by, I can't think of his name at the moment. I'll put it in the link. I'll put it in my description of who it was, to get some details about the case as well. Wikipedia was, I mean, of course, it's Wikipedia, but this looks like black. Oh, it's like brown. But, yeah. So, it's hot. Calm down. This hot plate works real nice. Sorry. Anyway, so he was born Earle Leonard Farrell in May 12th, 1897. And the reason why he goes back to Nelson is that his father was Spanish, and after they died, the grandma takes, well, I'll get into this, but the grandma takes over and doesn't want, she's an awful person, doesn't want him to acknowledge his Spanish heritage, so it goes back to Nelson. But his parents were partiers, and there's nothing wrong with partying, but they also were not good people. Ooh, that smells good. Sorry. They were not good people. Well, especially the dad slept around, got syphilis, gave her syphilis before she knew anything about it. I think they both partied around a little bit, I'm sure. It was the 1800s, late 1800s, so they were not in, there wasn't a lot they could do as far as medical treatment back then anyway, but they were both riddled with syphilis. Like, when she gave birth, she was not doing well, and it had already seeped into her brain. They didn't even really tell her about it, but of course, it's the late 1800s, so it was all up to the man to deal with it. They didn't want to, she couldn't handle the information, of course, whatever. So dang it. Let me fix this real quick. So again, like I said, they were riddled with syphilis. The dad was off. They gave her treatment for her syphilis after he was born, but it already seeped into her brain and was getting worse. And it's not like they stopped partying, so all the STDs kept getting worse and worse and worse. To the point where the dad died of syphilis in a gutter. And he was before, I think they were a year and a half. They say they both died before he turned 2, but it was a year and a half. Now, the dad was in the gutter before the mom. Woo. Excuse me, sorry. It is pretty. It's a weird look. I like it. But, yeah. So the dad was in the gutter before the mom. The mom was not doing good. She was going off. Ew. Shit. Sorry. Had to think. Okay, so I have it on here. Excuse me, real quick. So her syphilis got so bad that she lost her nose. It seeped into her brain, and he was just left crying for 2 weeks while she just was decomposing. She died and was decomposing in the apartment. He was left crying. Then it took a week or so before the landlord came to check on him, and then he went to live with his grandma, who still had children, by the way. They were 8 and 10 years older than him, but still, he kind of he was raised with them. They didn't really get along. He was kind of weird, but things got real weird before, like I said before when I was talking about the film, he collided in a streetcar accident, which was true. And Wikipedia doesn't really go into detail, which I am going to go into a little bit of detail just because I didn't realize how awful it was. I won't give you awful details, but it says when he was 10, he collided. He was already back up. So I'm thinking, my hypothesis is that the syphilis, it can get into the brain of the fetus as well. So there was probably already damage done before he was born. Because it was noted that even in his early life, he had, even before head injuries, he was really morbid and had like self-loathing behaviors as a child. But then, excuse me, well, I messed up my notes. There we go. Okay. There we go. Like I said, he was already messed up, but the grandma was super Pentecostal, I believe, super religious, so that comes into play later because of, add a little bit of black. It's a little too white. I don't know. It's a little too black coffee. But I mean, I like black coffee, but I want it to be a little bit more like latte. There. Ooh, that is so pretty. Okay. Anyway. So, just remember that as far as like, and it always is, they want to pervert their religion for their crimes. Duh. Like that happens all the time. It's gross. You know, as long as you don't hurt anybody else. But that they did hurt. They hurt bad people. I mean, they were bad people for hurting other people. There we go. I don't really know. I messed up what I was trying to say, but they're perverting their religion to hurt people, and that's not cool. There's the mocha. There we go. You'll see when I pour it. Anyway. Hey. That looks cool. But, so, anyway. So like I said, when they talk about it in the film, he did collide with a streetcar. And he was in a coma for 6 days. Now, I was just like, got knocked out. Whatever, 6 days. Took him to the hospital. No. This is like the early 1900s, so what are they gonna do for you? But even the fact that there wasn't that much to do for him anyway, it was worse than what I thought. So he got knocked in the head with with the streetcar. Sorry, my brain. But it wasn't that he got knocked out. No. He was still awake and just had a giant hole like in his temple. Like probably gave himself a personal lobotomy, but like it had to have been like a reverse lobotomy because that's supposed to make you more docile and he got more violent. So I mean, I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, but you know, it really gave him like probably frontal lobe damage because I know what I'm talking about. No, but not only so he was awake still, but his speech was impaired, so he wasn't making any sense, and they just put him upstairs. They didn't even like bandage the wound, and they left him up there for 6 days. He was knocked out, and when he woke up, he was covered in his own filth. And instead of just taking him to the doctors, they just like hosed him off with the freezing cold in the yard. Like, okay, that's cool. That's how that works. That's how we take care of our children. No wonder he's messed up. And no excuses for murdering people, but you know, he didn't really have much of a chance. So, again, like he had really strong religious views. They were like pounded into him. But then again, after the head injury, his behavior got even worse. As far as manic behaviors, talking to invisible people, and then quoting the Bible, which I'm not saying quoting the Bible is the weird thing, but like it was like also just like compulsively quoting it. That's the word, compulsively quoting it. And then he started watching all the female family members. In fact, the grandma, it's a weird color. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. The grandma got so weirded out by him that, like, she would lock the door when she would take a shower, and one day she slipped and fell and broke her hip and didn't want to call out to him. So, like, she drowned in the tub, and then he went and stayed with, I think, an aunt. Now, I'm probably getting this wrong, some of this wrong. Don't at me. I'm doing my best. This is my first episode. We're still doing, oh, I have one more. Cool. Yay. Because I want to do green. I have a chai tea, so we're going to do like a green tea one too. But right now I'm doing coffee. This was more of the espresso for sure. But I feel like we're going to have like layers of coffee. Different kinds, different shades. For all of our flavors. But, so he goes to live with an aunt, I believe. And he starts going into the red light district, but then while he still doesn't really drink, but he is going to get sex workers, but it's just like really, he just has weird, and they call him, he has weird talents. He's really fit. He has big hands, big arms, which is why they call him the gorilla killer later. He also walks on his hands, he like pulls things with his teeth. So he has like weird talents, which would be fine if that was all you did. But all the other stuff is the problem. So he starts doing small crimes, small like petty larcenies, in and out of San Quentin prison a couple times. He was paroled. He was in Stockton. These are all the small crimes. But then he was in Stockton. Then he was arrested in Los Angeles on burglary charges. And then he was in 5 months there, but then he escaped. And he does this a lot. This escape thing is not new. And I know these are older prisons, but I mean, I guess, so there isn't as much technology to keep, people from escaping. Like, it's scary. Back and forth. So he would like escape prison, and then they would just forget about him. Whatever. And then he just enlisted in different military branches, and then would go AWOL. Back and forth, like multiple times. Like this is not the 20s that we think about. That would not happen. You can't, I guess, but the work that you would have to do, I don't know. I'm not trying to run away and escape my life. We all say that, but I'm not really trying to go off the grid. But I know it takes a lot of money, and I know he was just like fingerprinting and stuff, like they would run your fingerprints and know that you had already enrolled, enlisted, and escaped, and enlisted and escaped. Like this had happened multiple times. And then he finally went into the Napa. He went into the Navy mental hospital, and then he went into the Napa State mental hospital because he was living in a constitutional psychotic state. And he was institutionalized multiple times, but he did not appear to be violent, homicidal, or destructive. You are not paying attention, sir. This is not correct. He did have hallucinations and paranoid delusions, and people who suffer from that, I'm not saying like we all, most of us know, like if you're schizophrenic, most of the time you're not going to be violent. You're probably gonna be more likely to be violent towards yourself than other people. But I feel like the delusions that he had, they might have given him some red flags, but they weren't really listening because he was escaping all the time, and they didn't really care. I guess, I don't know, I'm not there. I wasn't there, so I don't know really how much they cared or not. But the fact is, this is why I think they didn't care that much. This is why. Because he had headaches as well, dizzy spells, of course, from the head injury that was just not taken care of. Let's not even think about that. But, and again, I'm not excusing him. He's a terrible person, and you can't use your head injuries and your upbringing to excuse what you did. Oh, this looks like hot chocolate. Sorry, my brain. They called him Houdini, and because he escaped like 3 times, and then they just stopped trying to locate him. This is why I don't think they cared very much. And then they just, they didn't care. And then the Navy, in absentia, discharged him. And the hospital indicated that he was improved. But he was improved because he wasn't there. So that's why they didn't care. And later, I mean, this was 1919, so they had a lot on their plate. There was, you know, World War I was going on. So, I mean, there was more to worry about than just this one guy escaping. So, but I'm just, that's just like, rah, it drives me crazy. I don't know. Like, if they had cared a little bit more, then maybe stuff wouldn't happen later. But, I mean, it was hard. He hadn't really done anything. Maybe and there wasn't probably the medication that could have done anything to help him that there is now. But, you know, sorry, I digress. I'm probably using that wrong too. Don't come for me. Okay. So in 1921, he, again, under another pseudonym or another alias, he posed as a plumber and, oh wait, no, sorry. We'll get there. He became a janitor at the St. Mary's Hospital using the pseudonym Evan Lewis Fuller. And then he met a 6-year-old named Mary Martin, and who was an administrative worker there, and they began dating, and then they got married. Now, he's in like his early 20s. Now, I'm not, age differences, whatnot. Like, I'm older than my husband, not by that much, but so I mean, I don't care about that, but that's like, he knew what he was doing. He knew. Who's the mocha? He knew that he was trying to scare. So I got like the black coffee. It's like a black green tea coffee, and then we got cream, and then we got like this one's like the diet creamer that doesn't make it like the almond milk that doesn't make it as creamy as like the other one. So they get married, but it's like hell for her because he's got these crazy delusions, these bizarre behaviors, and it's just like I said, like the super religious, unusual bathing practices. He like pours water over his toes, which I mean, if that was the only thing, but like so they quickly divorced. But which I would think, I mean, I guess have that weird spinster quality of the 20s that like you would just fall for somebody. But you know, again, he's manipulative and he knows how to talk to people to think like, oh, he really does care. Blech. Terrible person. Sorry. Crazy people. Nothing wrong with crazy people. He's just a bad person. Anyway, so this is where it starts. This is the beginning of the end, or the beginning of the awful. So 1921, May 19th, 1921, he poses as a plumber at a residence and attempts to molest a 12-year-old, and she screams, and her elder brother comes in and he flees, and he's captured a few hours later. And then he was again, that's when he was finally deemed dangerous, and he was sent to the Napa State Mental Hospital, where he had escaped before multiple times, and again he would continue to escape multiple times, 2 more times to be like, you know, correct with facts. And then he was finally discharged in 25. So he spent like 4 years there. But it seems like, I know, it's so frustrating because you just want to, like, if he did that, we know now that, like, that's going to escalate. But they didn't know back then that it's going to escalate to something terrible. I mean, I know, I'm looking at this from our eyes now, from our more educated eyes now. But, you know, you want it to be something different. But it was only 4 years, and it just seems like he could have, He should have been doing longer time. And like they should have added more time for every time he escaped. I don't know. It gets frustrating to think about. But so he escaped in 25. And that's when the spree starts. Well, it really doesn't start till 26, but there are some, we'll go over some cases that could be connected as well, but we'll get there. Now, I think it's weird, not weird, I guess he's gonna go for whatever, because his first and one of his last victims was really young, and mostly they were older women that mostly older women that owned boarding houses that he would talk his way in, and he'd say, look, I'm religious and I'm like, you can trust me, and then no, you can't trust me, and then he would murder them, and he would rape their dead bodies, and then he would like sometimes steal from them, of course, but like it was mostly about like, you know, that control, like, and they called it the they said the law enforcement called him, like, he had that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde quality where like he could, you know, talk his way in anywhere and then turn on you, which was like, you know, that manipulative quality, that red flag, that scary person that's hiding behind the non-scary personality. So again, he would, well versed in Christian theology, he would talk his way in. You can trust me. He would stay with them for a while, then he would kill them and rape their bodies. I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just like, it's just terrible. It's horrible what happened to these women. And then he would and they would often hide the body like under a bed or in a box, in a closet or like somewhere, like, and then he would leave. And then he would go on to the next one. And at the height of it, he was like killing like once every 3 weeks. And there's like, well, I'll go over the dates, but they're like, there's a lot. Like he must have like done it right away. Like he would talk his way in, do it, and leave. So it really wasn't about, like, he does steal, like they show in the movie, he has money, and then one of the reasons he gets caught is because he does steal and he pawns the stuff. But it's mostly, it seems like it's mostly motivated by the sexual component. And like they tries to say that he's insane, and like, yes, he is crazy, but that doesn't mean he is a bad person. He's not, but not in the way to where like it would, like, he knows right from wrong, but not in the, like, yeah, he's a bad person. He's insane for doing something like that, but he knows right from wrong. So you can't use the insane defense. Hold on. Didn't have enough wax in there, man. Okay. So we're gonna go over all of his victims right now, because I think it's really important, even though this has been a long time, this was a long time ago, it's really important to talk about the victims themselves. There wasn't a lot of information. I mean, they didn't really have a lot of information on each of the women. But I think it's important that we know their names, because I've said his name so many times, and I think it's important that we know their names too. So, his first known victim is Claire B. Newman, and she was murdered February 20th, 1926. She was 60 in San Francisco, California, and like I said, he killed her while she was showing him the room for in a boarding house, and then he committed necrophilia. And then the next month, March 2nd, so not even like a full month, just a couple weeks later, We have March 2nd, 1926. We have Laura Beale, 63, San Jose, California. So a little bit further away. Ooh, this is gonna, let's see if this works how I want it to work. Sorry. She was strangled to death in her home so forcefully that the cord that he used was embedded in her neck. And again, it doesn't, yeah, I'm pretty sure, again, it was like talked your way in either for boarding or for like to maybe sell something, but like for boarding mostly. Like, he had room for rent, and he would talk his way in and they would take advantage. And then the next one was June 10th, so a little bit later. So he must have been, well, I guess he wasn't traveling too much, but he must have either got worried or was traveling or saving some kind of money. There we go. Well, that didn't work out how I wanted to, but we'll fix it. Oh, that's pretty. Sorry. This is the serious part. And I'm not being serious. There we go. There we go. Apologize. Okay. So yes, again, strangled, and then he committed necrophilia. Then the next like 2 weeks, turn this down a little bit. All right, so I finished those ones. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna pour this. I want a different smell. Take a pause. Just a second. All right. Got these 3. We're gonna do chai. The next ones we're gonna do, I know I haven't really been explaining exactly. I mean, you can see what I'm doing. It's not rocket science here. It's fun for me, but it's not like it's rocket science. So sorry about that. I had another little not interruption, but update on my cups that my husband's making me. So I'll just pause a little bit. But we'll edit through that. You won't even know, except for that I'm telling you. Anyway, back to the awful. All right. So we stopped at June 10th. I started to go on. So June 24th. The next one, 1926, Ollie Russell, 53, in Santa Barbara, California. Strangled and then victim of necrophilia. All right, like I said, I'm working on, I'm sorry, I feel like it kind of breaks it up if I talk about the craft and then that, but we'll feel it out as we go in future videos, if anybody even cares. Anyway, so I did coffee. These ones I did coffee in different like shades of creamer. And then I have, for my teacups, I did pumpkin and pumpkin and cinnamon red, because that's my favorite color and they're important to me. But like I said, if you order it, I make it however you want. You can have it your way, just like Jack in the Box. I always joke at work. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I joke at work that people always want to have it their way at their food, and I will do it for them. But when I leave, I always say, this is not Jack in the Box. And you know what? It's probably Burger King. I don't even remember anymore. But anyway, it's frustrating. Another little tangent of mine. Anyway, so I think the next one I'm going to do is chai tea. And I know it's not chai, but I'm going to do it like kind of like a green tea, like maybe kind of like a matcha color. So we'll see how that works. Anyway, break it up a little bit. All right, so like I said, we're on June 20. We just did June 24th for Ollie Russell, and she was strangled again. She was another boarder. I'm looking for a boarder. We jump to August 16th. So I always wonder, I mean, not that I don't wonder that much because he's an awful person, but I wonder what was going on that he took so much time, because there are some, he has a really weird cooling off period. Like some are really close together and some aren't. So I wonder what was happening in that time. Like, did he want to be killing more? Or was it that, like, he couldn't? Or that, like, something was happening? Or, like, was he really satisfied? It's like, I don't know, like, I don't really care if he was satisfied. He's a terrible person. But it's just, it's a weird pattern. So, August 16th, 1926, Mary C. Nesbitt, 52, in Oakland, California. So he's going back, like, not really going back down to LA yet. I think he does, but mostly in the northern part of Santa Barbara, middle, but more northern area. Oakland, California. He strangled her and raped her in the apartment building. And I wonder, it doesn't say that he was looking to rent a room, but that's usually where he found his victims, was if they had, like, placed an ad for a room for rent. But maybe there was somebody, doesn't say it, I have to look it up, I'm sorry. Sorry for my bad research, guys. But it was initially thought to be her husband, and he was questioned by the police. Of course, the husband always does it. I mean, not really. I mean, yes and no. That's, I mean, family is always always looked at first. You gotta rule them out. That's, duh. But he was initially questioned, but he was cleared of suspicion because the neighbors saw a smiling stranger outside of the house, and he was a stocky man with long arms and hands. And this is when they started referring him to, like, the dark strangler or the gorilla man or the gorilla killer, because he's, like, really big and stocky. And his picture, like, that's a picture. I don't really like to give him, like, his face doesn't need any more acknowledgement. Even if you didn't really know about him, he's a serial killer. He doesn't need any. I mean, I know I'm talking about it and I'm rambling about it, but if you look up his picture, he looks like a mobster dude, but I mean, I guess it's that time period, but whatever. He looks like an old gangster, like a big, tough, old gangster. But, like a Capone kind of guy. But I think, it didn't say how tall he was, but he's, like, bulky. But anyway, doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. The lives of the women he murdered matters. So that's when they started linking things up and calling him the gorilla killer, because he looked like that. And then they started, which honestly, they picked it up pretty quickly, although there could be more that they don't know about it, but they started putting it together pretty quickly. The people who were trying to rent rooms, it's too green, or older women especially, were at risk. And it's weird that she was married, because I don't know if the other ones were. Well, some are. I'm sorry. Oh, puppy. My puppy's drowning. Anyway, so he must have gotten worried at this point, because he does go up to Oregon. Doesn't stop, but he does change. There it is. He does change his location to try and hide. So he goes up to Portland, Oregon. And in October, so it's like 2 months. But again, this is the 20s, so it's probably going to take him longer to get there anyway. October 19th, 1926, Beata B. Withers. Now, I'm probably almost for sure saying that wrong. Sorry. She was 35, so she's a little bit younger. But, she was strangled to death and raped after death. And he stuffed her body in a trunk, which is later found in the home by her 15-year-old son. This one was weird, and I don't know why, because she was found in a trunk. But they weirdly thought it was suicide, even though her hands were tied. And it was like a tie between, they had like a coroner's jury of 7 people. It was like 3 was murder and 3 it was suicide. But I don't know how could you think it was suicide? I don't, like, the details given don't explain why he would think it was suicide. It's very strange, unless they think I guess if somebody thought that they did die by suicide, and then the family tried to cover it up because they didn't want that to be the case. But that's a lot. That's a lot. This is so bright. But eventually it was ruled a murder. The next day, good God, man. October 20th, 1926, Virginia Ada Gray Grant, 59. So, again, a little bit older, Portland, Oregon, strangled, and her victim of necrophilia, and her body was hidden behind the furnace in her boarding house. The next day, October 21st, 1926, Mabel H. Fluke, they don't give her age, Portland, Oregon, and her body was discovered in the attic of her boarding house as well. Like, dude, that, like, no cooling off period. It's almost a berserker mode, but he's got a lot to go. I mean, I guess there's a lot, like, there's more. If this was, I mean, I guess this does happen now, so I'm trailing off in my brain. But if this was happening more now, I feel like there probably would be, hopefully catch on quicker if it's really, like, if it was really at that point of berserker. But I guess it also, like, she was killed on that day, but I don't know how long it took him to discover it either. And that's a lot. Like, that's a lot. It's terrible. So 21st, and then almost a month later. So again, but he's going, so I'm guessing they were starting to catch on, because that's a lot in a very short amount of time, because he goes back down to San Francisco for November 18th, 1926, and that's Anna Edmonds, and she was 56 in San Francisco, California. And then she was, again, strangled to death and a victim of necrophilia. And that was November 18th. November 19th, and then the next day. So weird. He has these weird which I guess they're traveling cooling off periods. And then he goes boom, boom, boom. So the 19th, November 19th, Mrs. H.C. Murray in Burlingame, California. She's 28, so she's a lot younger. And this woman survives. She's pregnant, and she's attacked while showing Nelson her home for sale. So he's saying that he's going to buy it. But she does survive. So now we have a witness. Alright, so 2022, like 4 days later, November 23rd, 1926, Florence Monks, 48, Seattle, Washington. He got up there fast. That must have been the traveling. Goes up to Seattle, Washington, and her body was discovered by her caretaker, stuffed behind the basement of a furnace of her Capitol Hill home. Nelson later gives Monk's stolen jewelry to to Portland women as gifts. So like in the movie, he gives all the family different gifts. I didn't really talk about that. I didn't want to give away all the details because eventually you'll watch the movie yourself and you'll see. But he does, like there was shown that he has all of these things. So he does steal some stuff, but it really isn't about that for him. But he'll use it to his advantage. If that means he can make somebody trust him more. It's like, look, I'll give you a ring. Let me in your home. I know Bible verses. Let me rent a room. I guess this is why we do background checks for renters now. I mean, well, yes, I guess all of that would show up on a background check. So, yeah, I would say so. Okay. Okay. So the 29th goes back down to Portland. So again, traveling time. Blanchmere's, which is not, I mean, it's not that far. Yes, it's not that far. We know. If you follow my other channel or of anything, you know that I used to work at an airport bar, and a lot of people would live in one and shop in the other and all that blah, blah, blah stuff. So you can go back and forth. It's not that I'm saying they can't, but this is the 20, so it is a little bit harder. But he did it quick. So, I mean, he has to be stealing stuff for them to get along because he's not doing any, like, he's not doing other kinds of jobs. So he's stealing for them to get by, but it's really not it's not part of his, like, need. He's not doing, I mean, it may be, I don't know, but I don't really think so. It's not, like, part of his big need. So, yeah. November 29th, 1925, Blanchmere's 48 of Portland, Oregon, strangled and raped in her home, and fingerprints are found on her iron bedpost. So now we have a witness and we have fingerprints. If only we had DNA back then, he would have gotten caught a lot faster. If only he'd just been kept away from people, and maybe if somebody had fixed his head injury. Anyway, not giving him an excuse. He doesn't get an excuse because lots of people with head injuries don't go killing people, but awful person. Okay. So now we're catching on. So now he's left fingerprints, he has a witness. So he dips off the West Coast and is going into the Midwest. So now we're in Iowa, Missouri. December 2nd. So traveling time, of course, goes from November 29th, December 2nd. Wow, he must have left right after. Ugh, terrible person. Makes me so angry. December 2nd, 1926, Mrs. John Berard. Why didn't I put her first name? But, okay. 41. Location was Council Bluffs, Iowa. This one also, again, another one that's thought to be a suicide. This one has a little bit more merit behind it. She was strangled to death, and she was a victim of rape. But I guess they didn't have as many tests back then, so they couldn't, I guess they could have just thought she had sex with her husband at the time. But, they initially thought it was a suicide because she had just had to stay at a psychiatric hospital. But, I mean, you just strangle yourself? Like, you wouldn't be found? I don't know. It's very frustrating. But it was eventually ruled as murder, thank God. December 27th, 1926. So we took Christmas off. Oof. And we have Bonnie Pace, 23, another younger one. Most of them are older, but I think it's just because that was who was renting rooms. I think if he had his choice, it would probably be younger. Although I think he can probably manipulate. He feels like he could probably manipulate the women older as well. And the fact that it was probably a replacement for his grandma, who's awful to him as well. So there could be lots of theories on that. She was in Kansas City, Missouri. And again, same MO. Next day, December 28th, same city, Kansas City, Missouri, a little bit older, 28, Germania Harpin. Sorry if that's your name and I mispronounced it. Let me know if that is your name. That's kind of an interesting name. And I'm probably saying it completely wrong, but you know what? Everybody says my name wrong. And I never care. Does I only have 3 of these? Oh yeah, yes. Sorry. My name is, like I said, it's Aubrey. But everybody says Aubrey or Albury or Albine. But that's a different story. And I never care. But again, if it is really your name and I mispronounced it, I apologize. You can tell me how to say it. I think it's a pretty cool, looks like a pretty cool name. Interesting, at least. Okay. So yes, she's 28, Kansas City, Missouri. And again, same MO. Strangled, victim of necrophilia. This dude don't quit. Awful person. Good Lord, he did 2 in one day. Oh, that's right. I apologize. This one's awful. This one's a little extra awful because the other victim on this day was her infant son of that day. So he killed her son, who was 8 months old at the time. So that one's a little extra awful. Not that any of them, like, they're all awful. But get a little bit extra awful in there because there was a baby. So he goes, all right. So we're in Missouri right now, the end of the year. His next victim is on the East Coast and Midwest, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, New York area. But he doesn't start up until April, so that's a pretty big cooling off period. So I don't know if he's laying low because of the witnesses and the fingerprints, because it's not like fingerprints now. There's not a database. They had to look by hand, so it's not like they really had a lot to go on. They would have to have something to compare it to. And if they had done fingerprints, I mean, but there again, no database. I know I'm looking at this from 2020 eyes and not 1920 eyes, because if it were today, you could run those fingerprints through databases and you could match behaviors. I mean, not that's behavior and profiling is not the end all be all, but it could like narrow down your suspect pool a little bit. But we're not in the 2020s, we're in the 1920s, so there's a lot less that they had to go on. So he must have had a cooling off period. Not that to say that he was satisfied, but he was probably laying low because it is being publicized. They are writing about it, like it's becoming more known because, again, he's moving along and they're actually kind of connecting it. Not to, they don't know who, but they are like writing about it. Ooh, I think, okay, so I have an apple cider. We're going to pause for a second before we go on. I have apple cider. So let me see if I can make a little like apple cidery looking little one. Okay. Sorry. This is serious. I feel like it is very serious and I take it very seriously. But sometimes it's kind of like, that's the reason kind of why I wanted to do the crafts with it, is because it is so serious and it gets really dark. And so doing the crafts kind of break it up as a little bit of a palette cleanser, so it's not so dark the whole time. I mean, and it's serious and we should talk about it. But it's a little way of like just, you know, breaking up the content. All right. So he starts back up in April 27th, 1927. Mary McConnell the First, 53, Philadelphia. That's where this is the first. Maybe that's... Oh, no, sorry. I can't read. It's the... McConnell... There's 2 L's. And it just went to the next line. I apologize for my non-reading skills. I'm a smart person, I promise. Sorry. In Philadelphia, she was 53 and strangled and a victim of necrophilia in her home. So she must have maybe had one room for rent or something. And several of her articles of jewelry and watches were stolen. But I think that was happening more. I think it maybe just been bigger items just because he was probably running out of money. May 30th. So then April, May. Yeah. Next month was Jeannie Randolph, 53, of Buffalo, New York. And her body was, again, same MO, but her body was found stuffed under her bed in her home. June 1st. Again, his weird cooling off period, so we don't have one again. June 1st, we have Fannie Mae, 53, of Detroit, Michigan. And she was found dead in the boarding house that she operated, she managed, and she was garroted with an electrical wire. And same day in her, again, this is one of those weird, it's not as dark as the child one, but there is a second one. We have Maureen Attery at 3. We don't know how old she is, but in the same residence. She was a resident of Fannie Mae's boarding house, and she was found the same way. So she was probably a little bit younger, but maybe she walked in on them. Maybe she discovered the body before he could leave. But wrong place, wrong time, and she became another victim. June 4th, Chicago, Illinois. So basically the only cooling off period was travel time. Mary Cecilia Sittesma. I should have looked up the pronunciation of that. I apologize. Chicago, Illinois, and found by her husband strangled with an appliance cord. So I wonder, in some of these, I know that they were renting a room, but I wonder, I know boarding houses, and this is why you don't rent your room. And I'm not trying to victim blame. Just don't trust people. I mean, I only have a 2-bedroom. It's not like I would be renting out to anybody anyway, but I barely let anybody in my home as is. But again, it's not their fault. He should not be murdering. Yeah. Okay. June 8th, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Oh, okay. Manitoba. Sorry, I know that I said that wrong. And my brain doesn't like to read things correctly sometimes. That's good. So again, they're publicizing about it, they're talking about it. So he's running again. Maybe there was a witness. So he goes up to Canada, June 8th, Lola Cohen, and Cohen, and this is the other young one. We're almost done with the known victims. In Winnipeg, kidnapped, and then murdered and raped, and then they discovered her decaying body underneath the Nielsen's bed in Winnipeg boarding house where he was renting a room. So she must have been the daughter or a daughter of a boarder, and so awful. But it's weird. This is why, like, even though most of his victims are older, I feel like if he could, he would have, if he had the ability to get younger victims, like, he takes the chance with them if he can. Awful. But I think because he knows himself that he can manipulate them, manipulate older women with his Bible verses and stuff, that he sticks with that. So they found her under his bed. So now there's a connection to an actual victim, connecting himself to an actual victim. But 2 days later, he must have left, but then they must have found out that was his bed. But 2 days later, he does it again. Emily Patterson, we don't have an age for her, but in the same area, strangled to death, victim of necrophilia, and her body was found by her husband stuffed underneath their son's bed. And then he stole a suit and a gold ring, $70 from them. And that's partly how he was stolen, how he was found. We'll get there in a second. We've got a few possible victims. I'm gonna go quickly through this because they don't know, they can't link it entirely. They don't know for sure, but it's possible. So these happened before his actual known victims. So August 23rd of 1925, Elizabeth Jones, of 62, of San Francisco, was found strangled in her home with her own necklace after speaking to a man interested in purchasing her property. And he had recently been discharged from the Napa State Hospital at that time. So it could be that was his actual first victim. But I guess, because, he never, we'll get there, but he never admits to doing any of it anyway. Then we got September 25th, 1925. Daisy Anderson, 45, San Francisco, California, strangled while showing a room in her boarding house. And she was found nude inside her home. Look at that. Apple cider. Sad thing, fun thing. Break it up. I know. It's getting dark and sad. That's why we have the smell goods. Okay. I have more wax, right? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then October 1st, 25, we have Elma Wells, 32, San Francisco. Body discovered nude, jammed in the closet of a vacant apartment building that she managed. November 7th, 1925, Mary Murray, Philadelphia, strangled in the kitchen, found deceased upstairs in her bedroom, and body had been raped after death. Now, I don't know. I think the reason why some of these aren't completely connected is they don't really know where his whereabouts are in 25 before they actually start. But he was in San Francisco, so I don't know if he could have made it to Philadelphia and then back. But November 11th, we have Lena Weiner, Philadelphia. And found deceased in a bedroom by her husband. And articles of clothing of her husband's wardrobe were also missing. Again, it was pretty much same MO. But, it's terrible to say, but there's lots of terrible people out there. So, it doesn't have to, just because it fits Doesn't mean it is him, but I guess there is it is his MO. So it definitely could be. And he stole some of his clothes, which he would have needed because he didn't have money. It was not like he didn't have a job. He didn't have like a day job. All right. November 25th, no specific date. Ola Mccoy in Philadelphia, strangled in the parlor of her home. Body was a victim. She was a victim of necrophilia, and it was located. Her home was very close to Mary Murray's as well. So again, it's very. He does the close by kind of thing. He's I forgot to add some more wax. Not wax. Smells. Smellies. So it's, it has that small cooling off period in the same area, which is something that, there we go, is indicative of him. And then we got August 18th, 1926, Isabella Galeos, 50, in Stockton, California. So we're back to his original stomping grounds, getting close to his original date of starting. So this one definitely, especially, I think that some of the California ones definitely could be his. I'm not sure where he was during the Philadelphia ones, but there's lots of terrible people out there doing terrible things. So it could be him, it could not be him. It sounds kind of like it is, no. But she was a Russian immigrant. John Slitskov was arrested for her murder, but he was ruled out after a witness failed to identify him and pick him out of a lineup. So maybe that is kind of why they have the second. Well, there's a couple of them. There's that one. I mean, I know that's not an official victim, but in the movie, how there was another one that they were looking after, and like how the husband was looked at as a suspect too. So there was it could be him, but it could be this other person. So that was that little bit of in the film that they had a couple suspects. Let's make a mess. Awesome. Got it. So we're good. Okay, so he after he stole that stuff from his last known victim, he had pawned it. So in his capture, finally getting rid of this awful person, he had fled to they assumed he had fled to the United States. The Canadian police sent descriptions to him to the U.S. police stations and post office. So they're finally really, I think they were in the movie they did talk about it, they were looking for him. But it's really starting to ramp up now. They're sending it out all across, especially where the victims might have been, where his victims were, where they were connecting it to it. Then they were, in the days between the last murder and his capture, there were sightings of him all over Canada, so he actually didn't leave. And on June 16th, 1927, constables in Killarney, a border town of Manitoba, from the North Dakota border, arrested a man named Virgil Wilson, who fit Nielsen's description, and his demeanor was reportedly so calm and cooperative that the constables assumed that they had the wrong individual. And that is why we, and that's the scary part, and that's what the film is it's let's knock more things over. Good job. That is the scary thing, is that he is so cooperative and so manipulative that you think, oh, this isn't him. You can just let him go. No, we're going to do our jobs. We're going to make sure that this is actually the right person. Thank God. Okay. I have one more for myself left, but we'll see. Okay. Wilson was incarcerated in the local jail and managed to escape that evening, of course, because Mr. Houdini over here just keeps escaping. That they need to friggin' Oh, lock him down tight. Freaking, this is where, like, Ted Bundy got his ideas of escaping. Terrible person. Just keep escaping. He escaped, and then he made the mistake. Okay, sorry. And Wilson, but it's Nelson, made the mistake of trying to catch the same train that was transporting members of the Winnipeg police. And I see, this is where the train comes in, is that, except for that he didn't fall off, but he tried to escape on a train that had the police members on it. So, haha, your luck has finally run out, you piece of shit. But, so he was recaptured only 12 hours after his initial escape, thank God. And then he was officially arrested again the next morning by an officer of the Crystal City Police Department on the rail line. And Nelson was taken to the Rupert State Police Station in Winnipeg, where he was photographed, fingerprint, and prepared for identification lineups. Finally, right? We can't. Let's get this guy. Finally. Put his terror to an end. Ugh. This is an example of that this obsession with true crime is not new. There were 4,000 spectators awaiting his arrival outside the station and hoping to get a glimpse of the accused man. Good God. I know, yay. I mean, there wasn't anything on TV because there wasn't really TV. I mean, I guess there was nothing on the radio that day. They wanted to see it with their own eyes. There wasn't they wanted to get pictures of him. Photographs of Nelson were taken by the Winnipeg police and shortly sent out to the police departments throughout the United States in hopes of getting the positive identifications. And I think that might be why some of in the film, we need the pictures, but this is the 40s, so it should have been easier to get a picture. But it happened in the 20s, which was a lot harder to get a picture of somebody for identification. So I think that's where it's a little bit different. But I think they wanted to have the film set in the 40s. They didn't want to go back and have it set in the 20s. But I think that's kind of why they needed to get that identification in a little bit harder in the 20s. So they have positive identifications in California to the place where, for all the different renters, the places that he rented, to see if they could identify him as though he maintained his identity. Well, they wanted to identify him, so they sent his picture to all the places he had been. But he denied that he was Earle Nelson. He was definitely adamant that he was Virgil Wilson. At least I don't know, got creative with his name. I mean, sometimes they don't really care. Ted just kept Ted. At least he thought about it. I mean, I'm not giving him props. I'm not giving him props. I'm just a little bit more creative than some. Ugh. I mean, he did murder a lot more, but it was, again, a lot easier to get away with it back then, too. Ugh. Okay. We're almost done, guys. And then we can all have a drink. Alright. Fingerprints were forwarded from Winnipeg to San Francisco Department, where he was identified as Earle Nelson. Or Earle, as my brain likes to say it is. Because I like to make fun of his name. He's awful. And the fingerprints matched those left behind on the iron bedpost. And in the other places that they had fingerprints, of course. And so he finally was identified as Earle Nelson, and he was identified as the gorilla killer. But because he's an awful dick, and just thinks he's going to be able to talk his way out of things because he's always been able to talk his way out of things, wants to be an asshole, and says initially he admitted to the crimes by bluntly saying, "I only do my lady killing on Saturday nights." Ugh. Yeah, you're so funny. No. However, he would retract his admission. And I don't even think, and he would claim he's innocent, but that doesn't even sound like a confession. That sounds like a smart ass remark by someone who thinks he's smarter than he is, which he is exactly that. However, he would retract his innocence, and he would claim his innocence. And upon an interview with Manitoba Free Press, shortly after his arrest, he said, "I'm charged with 2 murders, but I am not the one who done it." But he's been charged with many more than 2 murders, but or connected to many more than 2 murders, but of course he didn't do it. And when asked if he was about the various persons in the United States who was positively identified him as a strangler, he responded, "All of them are wrong." Despite attempts on parts of both the United States and Canada law firm to elicit confessions, he refused to admit to the murders and that he was suspected or accused of. But he's awful. Of course he is. He doesn't want to be caught. He just wanted to keep on doing it. I'm going to continue the story. I'm just afraid to talk while I'm going to pour hot wax everywhere. You know. I have just enough. I think I'm going to finish. We're almost done, guys. I need some wine or some whiskey or something. Or maybe some tea out of a giant cup. And then eventually all of my candles will be dry and I can use them. I'm going to just take this moment while I'm doing this. While I'm not trying to read facts. I will post these pictures on my Instagram and my Facebook page so you can see all the finished products. I'll do some videos with them so you can see that, and then they will be on the website to purchase, of course. And that concludes my advertisement within my video. My own advertisement. I don't have sponsors yet. This is the first video. So, no HelloFresh codes yet. Maybe one day. Okay. Last one. What do I want? I did pumpkin pie. I have one left. This one for me, my personal one. I got gingerbread, coffee cake. Ooh, hot chocolate. Okay. We're gonna mix. Okay. Move the cider over. Oh, motherfucker! You know. Oh, it stayed though, so we're good. Excuse me. I never said that I was. In fact, I've denied it this whole time. Definitely not perfect, but I put my heart in everything. And everything that I make is special. And is loved by the person that gets it. So. It doesn't have to be Martha Stewart to be nice. Not that her stuff's not nice. It just doesn't have to be, cookie cutter perfect. Each thing is one of a kind and special in its own right. And that's what I like about all the personalized things that I do, is that it's not something you're going to buy. You're not going to find it in the store. And that's what I like about it. You're not going to find it in the store. And it's going to be personalized to the person. There's the smells that they like, the colors that they like, the shapes, whatever it is. It's for them.
Made with love.
Again, this ends my advertisement. Now,
I'm gonna turn this down, Mike.
because I can't open this. Apologize. I'm trying. It ripped. Oh, good God. I'm sorry. Let me just tell you some stuff while we do this. Okay, so at the time of his arrest, Nelson was wanted in 6 U.S. cities and was held to be tried in a Manitoba court for the murders on both Cohen and Patterson. He was also charged with the 2 counts of attempted molestation and 1 count of burglary. Nelson's trial was scheduled to begin on the June 27th, 1927, but was postponed on the request of his attorney. I apologize. This should not take that long. There we go. Okay. Okay. Turn this back on now. Okay. Instead, it began on November 1st at the Winnipeg Courts Law Building. R.B. Graham was the prosecutor, and Justice Andrew Dysart was the judge. He was defended by court-appointed attorney James H. Stitt, and his ex-wife Mary Martin did testify against him and said that he was absolutely insane. Duh. But not in the way where you can get away with murder. In the way that you kill people and you know it's wrong, but you do it anyway. And then additionally, over 60 individuals from Canada and U.S. testified by placing Nelson at scenes of various crimes, or linking him to the property where the victims were found.
I swear, I can't.
Chocolate. I'm gonna do like a swirl. We'll see. We're gonna practice swirls. Okay. All right. And he was a jail guard who oversaw him throughout the trial noted that he became particularly obsessed with a certain biblical passage of Proverbs, which read, "My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways, for a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She also lieth in wait as for a prey, and increaseth the transgressions among men." Perverting, you're like, ugh, you're justifying it. Like, stop it. You're gross. Like, don't do that. So awful. It's so frustrating. Like, don't do that. Sorry. But, yeah, he just used his religious upbringing and his religious thoughts, thinking, like, just to, like, he blamed them. He used it and he used that as evidence of the reason why he blamed it. And I'm like, it's awful. Don't blame the victims. So in closing statements, Nelson's trial were completed on November 5th, 1927, and only after 40 minutes of deliberation, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Finally, his reign of terror has ended. And he continued to proclaim his innocence. There's probably a theory out there that he really didn't do it. I don't know about that. And then in late
He continued to proclaim his innocence, and in December of 1927, Stitt submitted a 30-page document to the Minister of Justice proclaiming clemency, that he was insane. So when they read it, they found him, they did not find that he was crazy enough to have clemency. It says, the eloquent and even moving document consists of 20 affidavits from persons who had known Nelson throughout his life and swore they were in a position to know him full well, character, mentality of the said Earle Nelson, that they had verily believed without exaggeration or mental reservation had been a long period of time a person of unsound mind. I mean, yeah, he had issues, but that doesn't mean he didn't know what he was doing was wrong. Okie dokie. There we go. In one of the affidavits, Mrs. L. J. Casey, who had employed Nelson as a groundskeeper in 26, attested to noting that she hired him laughing and talking to himself all the time. She had heard him laughing and talking to himself all the time. And one day, while she happened to be there, he sat right outside in the drenching rain, looking at the sky without a coat until he was soaked through. I mean, not to say that that's not like an issue or whatever. That there's not an issue with that. That he didn't need any kind of mental help, which I'm saying he did, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that he murdered people and that he knew that it was wrong. That's the thing. But again, like I said, he was denied. And the execution was scheduled for the second Friday in January, and he was executed by hanging 7:30 in the morning, January 13th, 1928. Like, no downtime. Pretty much no downtime. About a year later. No, not even. Duh. Closing statements were in November of 27th, so the end of the year. 40 minutes, yeah. So he was sentenced to death in November of 1927, and he died January of 1928. So there was, no appeals process back then. And his last words were, "I forgive those who have wronged me." And that is the awful story, Crimes of Earle Nelson, and the interesting film Shadow of a Doubt. And I am finishing my last candle. Do I need a little bit more? Okay. So, thank you for joining me. This was my first episode. I've been planning this for a while. This has been really fun. I'm hoping you enjoyed it and you'll come back for the next one. I don't know what we're doing yet. I think I'm gonna make some bath products. Either salt scrub or sugar scrub or body butter. I don't know yet. We're definitely doing, I know the crime that we're doing and the film that we're doing. We're sticking with the oldies because I like the fact that not as many people have heard of it, about them. If you like Turner Classic Films, which is what I grew up on, you will know this film. You might not know the whole story. We're doing the A Place in the Sun, the Elizabeth, oh my god, brain fart, Elizabeth Taylor film. She's more of a supporting in this, but she does a great job. But it's a film that's based on the book American Tragedy, but that is also based on the murder of Grace Brown by her fiance Chester Ellsworth Gillette. And that's a really interesting film too.
beautiful. Yay! So we're going to do that one next time, and I'm still deciding exactly what craft we're going to do, but I am really excited to explore that case and that film with you because I think it's a really interesting movie. I'm finishing a book right now. Audiobooks are amazing. But thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Crafts and Crimes. Make sure to check out From the Heart Gifts, the links below, From the Heart Gifts on Instagram and Facebook, where I will post pictures from this and the crimes and the crafts if you want to stay up to date. And reach out, comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.